But I think for most of the audience here, just looking at the click-through rate, right, a measurement of how many people see your ad versus how many people actually click, right? Because if everything's good in your image and your price and everything was good, then they're going to want to click. But so if that sharply decreases, or if your conversion rate sharply decreases, look at your ad, look at your product, look at competition, to see what can be changed there. Using that data, the click-through rate, conversion rate, to your benefit is really, really important.
You're listening to ECOMMERCE, a Debutify podcast, your resource for one-of-a-kind insights into the world of e-commerce and business in the modern age. This is Joseph. I'll be presenting a wealth of industry knowledge from interviews with successful business people and our own state-of-the-art research. Your time is valuable, so let's go. Kurt Prosser, it is good to have you here in ECOMMERCE. It's good to see you. I'm loving the background tiles you got there. Very intricate.
Thank you.
How you doing? How you feeling today?
Good. Doing well. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Really excited to speak to you and your audience and talk about Google Shopping. So
terrific. Well, that is going to be question 2. But question 1 is our ECOMMERCE tradition, which is tell us who you are and what do you do, which actually I guess you may end up saying that about Google Shopping anyways, but let's go for it.
No, thanks. So my name's Kurt Prosser. So I specialize in helping small to mid-sized e-commerce stores, particularly Shopify stores, grow with Google Shopping. So that's really my sort of core. We have an agency called Easton Digital. We have 10 team members that work, like I said, specifically with small to mid-sized Shopify stores. But I also have my own Amazon private label brand. So I've been doing that since 2015 and been growing those since then. And so sort of tried to do an eat-your-own dog food scenario and sort of grow my own e-commerce stores, but ended up, Amazon private label brand just sort of took off, and that's growing like crazy. So really crazy. So that's a little bit about me.
Terrific. Well, I've heard, and this is, by the way, this is something that even I'm doing myself, is that at the very, very worst, we can set up these own projects for ourselves as a learning mechanism, so a testing mechanism, something that we can use to then apply our knowledge to the people that we work with.
Right. And that actually has helped me quite a bit. I mean, really, when I started Easton Digital, it was really focused on that like small to mid-sized e-commerce store. But then I had a client reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'd like you to help me sort of launch our own e-commerce store. It's ledlightbulbs.com." And so we launched it, we grew it. I ended up leaving to do the private label Amazon product and focus more on Easton Digital. But it learned a lot. I mean, really diving into all aspects of e-commerce and all aspects of just trying to grow an e-commerce business really taught me personally a lot about just some of the challenges that small, Shopify stores face, but also really, how to focus on what's important to really help them grow. And they're, sort of rolled that into Easton Digital, but then also rolled it into my own Amazon or e-commerce brand, which is why we focus exclusively on Amazon private label, because I just didn't want to do all the shipping and do all that stuff myself and wanted to let Amazon take care of it. Because again, Easton Digital is my primary thing here. So it was a little bit easier to focus on what's the most important and then let the rest take care of itself. So,
yeah. I'm finding that whether it's as Amazon private label or using one of the drop shipping services, I've talked to a bunch of them lately. I talked to Yakify, who I'm leaning towards greatly, so much so that I signed up and I'm already working with them. So I don't know why I said leaning towards. Talked to Weo, and having those interim companies is personally, in my opinion, pretty pivotal to being able to compete, ironically, with Amazon. But at least it gives people a lot of that extra, a lot of energy that they can use focusing on their marketing and not have to worry so much about spending their energy on even getting to the point where they're physically putting the inserts into their own packaging.
Right. Well, yeah, and that goes back to the challenge of small to mid-sized Shopify owners. I mean, they're wearing so many hats. There's so many things to do in an e-commerce business. There's just, there's a limited number of things you can do. And so to really allow you to focus on the real important levers of your business, I mean, that's if you really focus on those skills or what's most important, and sort of outsource or free up the rest, I mean, that can allow you to grow so fast. I mean, even for us, for our Amazon business, I mean, what we were really good at was finding manufacturers in China and doing a little bit of product redevelopment to make it work for the private label market. And but all the fulfillment, all logistics, customers, all this stuff is just like we didn't want to try to grow that. And so, I mean, and it scaled so quickly, and it's sort of and it can
Mhm,
scale up or down depending on inventory. So it's really worked out well. Worked out very very well. So, in fact, I think over this year
mhm. I
we'll last. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I might chamber it to just to ask you kind of like how you started up doing the Amazon private label, but we can get to that.
Yeah, yeah, no. So, really, I mean, in terms of starting up, I mean, like I said, I had a client that came to me from that wanted to start LEDlightbulbs.com, and so we started
Mhm,
LEDlightbulbs.com, and we were running that. And at the time, there's a lot of competitive forces between GE and Philips and Sylvania, but Chinese manufacturers started reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, look, we've got our own version of this light bulb. Would you be interested in selling this?" And so that's what we started doing. I said, okay, well, great. You've got this price of light bulb, and the Chinese government, of course, subsidized that quite a bit. So it was a very, very low compared to that GE and Philips and Sylvania light bulb. So great. Well, I'm just going to put our private label brand on it and throw it out there. And my business partner on the Amazon private label side, he's Chinese, so he does all of the manufacturing negotiations, all the inventory and all the coordination back and forth with them. So that's helped a lot. But that's probably like 25 to 25% of my time. But it's just again, it just I feel like it sort of helps me learn a little bit more about e-commerce and helps me sort of see all aspects of e-commerce. So it gives me that well-rounded education of e-commerce. So it's helped out quite a bit.
And there's people who have a punch card right now where if I talk about how this show has helped me more than 8 times, they get a coffee. So there's a few people who are about to cash in on a coffee, which is like just being able to do content like this has just been like the
Yeah,
the amount of information that I've absorbed is
yeah,
there's stuff like 6 months ago that is just sinking in today, and it
yeah,
really just changes a view of what we're capable of and what we can do to change a lot of people's lives, sometimes in a short amount of time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree.
So, we know we want to talk about Google Shopping today, and
Hmm.
what I tend to do is just to make sure that I don't like retread familiar territory.
Yeah,
Is I'll go through the backlog and just see, okay, have I had this conversation before? Forgiving me, audience, but I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm doing my best to retain everything.
yeah,
It's legitimately getting harder and harder as time goes on, but I'm doing my best here. And so we
yeah.
did talk to Marco Rodriguez. So that would
Hmm.
be a good episode to check out as well for reference material as to some of what's going on in Google Shopping. So Kurt, the question I pose to you is more of a state of Google Shopping
Yeah.
it is now. Is maybe what are some of the major developments that have happened over the course of maybe the last 6 months, and what are the main, I guess, appeals to getting into Google Shopping today?
Yeah. No, that's a great place to start because there has been a lot of changes in Google Shopping. And it's especially for the small to mid-size e-commerce store, Shopify store owner, because there's so many resources, so much information out there, so many different strategies that you can use for Google Shopping. But I think to get your sort of the root of your question there, I mean, what I think has really changed over the past 6 months is these smart campaigns, and particularly how the smart campaigns perform with some of the more traditional keyword targeted manual campaigns. Okay. Now, for those that maybe don't know much about Google Shopping, and Google Shopping by default just uses your product titles and shows your ads for everything that's relevant, and it's there's not a whole lot of keyword targeting that goes on in terms of old sort of text ads where you can target specific keywords and show an ad. However, there are sort of more advanced strategies where you can use those sort of keywords and like negative keywords, and it's too technical to go in here, but there are some advanced strategies that you can use. But what we've seen though, again, back to your question, what we've seen is some of the smart campaigns have, I'd say, started competing more aggressively with those keyword targeted advanced strategy campaigns. Okay, so not to get too technical, but I think it's important. I think for the last 6 months, more and more agencies like us have started using multiple strategies in their Google Shopping account. So they'll have a data feed that's for like a smart campaign, and then they'll have a duplicate data feed for a keyword targeted manual campaign. So, um, not to ramble on too much here, but I'll give you an example. So, like, let's say you sell a vintage LED light bulb and you want to show for that, right? Google uses your title and says, okay, well, I'm going to determine if this ad is relevant to what the person's searching for, and that's fine. That's a good. But so your title could be vintage LED light bulb, and you target and you have a manual keyword targeted Google Shopping campaign that shows your Google Shopping ad for vintage LED light bulb. But let's say that same product you wanted to start showing for like I don't know, like retro like lighting or vintage lighting ideas or vintage light bulbs or some other terms. What you can do now is take a duplicate of that product in your feed. Okay, you can just you only have one product on your website, but you can create a duplicate in your feed, link
Hmm.
back to the same product, and then now use some of those smart campaigns to go after more top of funnel, more um, you know, top of funnel, mid funnel type keywords to get more traffic up there that you otherwise wouldn't have. So it's sort of
So one thing
yeah,
I just wanted
two
to
pronged
clarify is
approach.
when you
Yeah,
say that it's linked to the different products, is that it's linking to basically it would go to one product page per se.
yeah, yeah. One product page. So you can have one product on your website, but the point is you can create multiple products in your data feed to go after different keywords, right? That Google, because again, Google uses the product title in your data feed to determine it's relevant. So you can create different products in your data feed and then use different campaign strategies for each one of those to go after different points in the funnel. So again, I don't mean to get too technical here, and, but the point is if you are just running one smart campaign, or you are just running one default sort of manual Google Shopping campaign, yeah, I highly recommend checking out sort of duplicate product IDs and duplicate feeds to run multiple campaign strategies. That has we've seen a lot of um, uh, increase in traffic from those and increase in sales because you can now go after sort of different points in the funnel and use something like a smart campaign to cast a wide net and go after lots of traffic at very low cost per click, but then use something like a manual keyword targeted campaign to go after very expensive sort of bottom of funnel, very targeted keywords. So, so hopefully that answers your question. So I think that's the biggest change is that as Google's rolled out some of these campaign strategies, more and more agents like us are testing multiple different campaign strategies at the same time to get to better target specific points in the funnel. So
Right.
hopefully that
Yeah. So
helps.
it helps quite a bit. I'm certainly putting some pieces together. So, based
Yeah,
off some of my own understanding prior to, is that
yeah,
a lot of marketing is centered around the top of funnel because
yeah,
we want to. The idea is if I'm going to put out an advertisement, I need to cast as a wide of a net as possible in order to get the best ROI. So then that way,
right,
then from there they head over to my website, and that's where they get closer to the funnel, and eventually they convert, and then ideally reconvert, and
right,
then we get into remarketing.
yeah,
And that's all well and good, but that is what we learn. And this is especially because I'm taught a lot on Facebook marketing is that we are spending money just to get the data so that we know who to target. So that first wave of advertising is actually just continued testing.
yes, yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. So yes, especially with some of the smart campaigns, so especially as you think, really over the last 6 months, like how are you going to use Google Shopping to drive profitable sales to your store? And how are you going to use Google Shopping to really grow long term? Using that smart campaign and going after top of funnel, yeah, you are sort of testing and trying to learn what search terms and search queries actually work for you, and let Google's algorithm sort of warm up and start finding those profitable customers. But even before you do that, like if someone in your audience is just getting started with Google Shopping, say what's the right way to get started or how should I start, you can still use those keyword targeted campaigns to target bottom of funnel terms. So let's say that you're selling a Garrett metal detector, like a Garrett model something metal detector. You can set up in your data feed Garrett model whatever metal detector, and then you can create a manual keyword targeted campaign that just goes after and just focus your ad spend on Garrett model whatever metal detector. So that's that. So you can start at that very specific. I mean, you can start 5, 10, $20 a day and just target
Mhm.
those very specific terms. Okay. So you don't have to learn now. To your point, as you start growing and as you say, look, you want to start really ramping up and growing, now you have to go up more towards the top of funnel, mid funnel, and try to get some of those people that may just be looking for like metal detector or may just be looking for like outdoor hobbies, right? Or best metal detector for beginners, right? You can sort of, at that point, that stage in the funnel, they don't care about the Garrett metal detector. So you can have another product ID in your data feed that goes after like, you know, um, I mean, I don't know if best metal detector for new beginners. You can go after that top of funnel and then learn see what the data is, learn the data, use your remarketing, use your Facebook retargeting to move them down the funnel, and then and hopefully get them to come back and buy. So
It's just funny you bring up metal detectors because some of my relatives they had some precious jewelry and they hid it in a
mhm.
satchel underneath the tiles between the basement and the main floor, and they can figure
Okay.
out where it is. And we were looking like into metal detectors to see if we can like scan our home just to try to catch some of it.
Yeah.
And the salesperson says, "Well, you realize that your house is like full of metal, right? And so it's just going to go off constantly." I'm like,
The-
God,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
you make a great point about using and you have to excuse me if I kind of like stumble over some of
Yeah.
the terminology. The So we'll just say the keyword specific targeting.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're trying to curate our advertising to reach what I would say are probably some of the more passionate customers, the people who
Right.
would naturally have a better ROI because these are people who are more enthusiastic about a product. They're doing their research.
Right.
If you convert these people, they become assets. They become part of your social proof
Oh, for
net.
sure.
So that's where if I'm going to put that kind of money into getting anybody, I would want to get the people who are
Right.
going to be a better investment from that point, and
Right.
then start to build that
Yeah.
base. And then we learn a
hmm
little bit more about these people, which is something I'm going to ask you
Yeah.
about just as soon as I'm done this diatribe here, which is what we learn from them is going to help us then target people on the higher parts of the funnel. So if we can use a metal detector as an analogy, I'm down for that. But what
Yeah.
can we learn from some of the people that we target in the most specific setting?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because that goes back to especially if you're just getting started with Google Shopping, like you want to be able to learn and see what the data tells you and say, okay, well, what can I then start expanding and growing? So um, I think there's a couple different. There's probably two primary areas of learning that can occur. Okay, one is from the customer side of things, and like customer demographics, customer type, what their problems are, what they value, and that's a little bit harder to sort of put exact numbers around. I mean, there's things like engagement and even video screen, video tracking that you can look at. But I think at least for me, the biggest learning that we look at is, well, what other search terms come up in that sort of stage in the funnel, and what's related to those search terms in keyword planner, or what are some in Google keyword planner, that is, what other search terms are related to those search terms from SEMrush, or what are some or maybe what competitors are showing up for those words, and what terms are those competitors actually advertising on, or what products are those advertising at. So to answer your question, I think the customer side of it, that's a whole another level of learning that's pretty powerful as well. But I think from the Google end of things, there's a lot of learning that just be done and looking at the data and saying what else is up there in terms of ads. What else are people advertising? What is my competitor doing? From their ads, from their targeting, how else can I position my ad? So we spend a lot of time on that element in terms of figuring out and we call it, so on our end, we call it sort of scaling horizontally and scaling vertically. So in order to grow those Google Shopping campaigns, we try to find those related keywords and terms and products. And just
Hmm.
give an example of that, like we have a client that sells gift baskets, and liquor gift bags specifically, and we started seeing all types of search terms related to mini liquor airport bottles or mini liquor bottles or mini liquor gift sets, and we went back to him and said like, look, we're getting tons of search volume for this. We see this demand here. You don't have a product for that. Can you create a product? And he did, and now it's one of his best sellers. So you can sort of use that data to try to create new products, to go to find new opportunities in terms of keywords, or find new competitors that you may have not thought of were competitors, but now you can start looking and seeing what they're
Mhm.
doing, and trying to find new products. So using the data in Google Ads, using the data in Keyword Planner or SEM Rush or even Google Trends can be very, very helpful for product development and sort of expansion of your advertising.
This might be the first time that it's occurred to me that how much we understand the demand side of it, because Google, and I know you talk about Bing too. These are search engines,
Yeah.
and it's all demand
Right.
based. People aren't. I don't know. You
Right.
don't search for supply as much as you search for demand.
Yeah.
I do need to back up though, because me personally, I don't know exactly what a smart campaign is. My guess is that there is AI involved, and that
Yeah.
Google itself is naturally doing uh, a lot of the legwork to
Yeah.
figure out on my behalf. Let's just say how it's just so that I'm not like needlessly spending money, and then I get
Yeah.
discouraged, and then I don't want to use the program at all.
Right. Yes. So that's a good place to start. Or that's a good
Thank you.
question. In Google Ads, okay, Google Ads name of the platform. Within Google Ads, there's a campaign type or channel called Google Shopping, and that's if you just go do a search, and that's the images, prices show up top. But there's two campaign sort of settings for Google Shopping. One is the Smart campaign, or the second is standard or manual Google Shopping campaigns. you know, Prior to the Smart, everything was done manually. Everything was, you just set it up and
Mhm.
it showed your ad for whatever. But what Google came out with is a Smart campaign that says, look, we have a lot of indicators on what a customer is looking for, what they want to buy. So we'll just programmatically determine what you should spend per click in order to hopefully reach your return on ad spend goal. So you just say, look, I want to maximize the number of conversions, add a specific ROS, and they just go find the customers. The benefit is it's a lot less work, right? However, there's a lot of negative side effect or a lot of issues for small to mid-sized advertisers because right it's an AI software, so it requires you to spend a lot of money. It requires you to have clearly if you're spending $50,000 a month and have 200,000 products, AI without a question is the best way. But like I said, if you're just selling that Garrett metal detector, or maybe 5 or 10 of those metal detectors, it's in your best interest to sort of look at the keywords and say, well, what are my best keywords? What are the terms that are most likely to get conversions? And again, you don't have thousands just to throw at it and let the AI take over. So
Mhm.
a standard or manual campaign can allow you to pinpoint those specific keywords. And so, there's debates in the industry, of course, of which one, everybody has their different opinion on the right strategy and the way to go. But I would say, back to your first question, I think the hopefully what everybody leaves with today is that it is good. Now, what we're seeing is to try to maybe even run both and see, okay, depending on where you're at in your business, you can run a smart campaign, use Google's AI to go after top of funnel and cast a wide net, or if you have lots of products, you can use that to try to find what product works, but then use the keyword targeted campaign or what we call KTC method or keyword targeted campaign method to target
Mhm.
specific words that are most likely to convert, because that will give you a whole bunch of data and allow you to spend a lower amount per month or lower amount per to try to pinpoint those specific customers that will drive profitable sales today. So yeah, here's an example. Like there's a client, not to keep rambling on, there's a client.
No, no, no. I
She
told you.
sells
By all
art.
means, go.
Okay, but I think examples are good because like she sold art and she's getting all Google set up her ads and she had a whole bunch of traffic. I think she spent like $1,000 or $1,200 per month for 3 months. And she told me like she's like my best customers are people that know the artist name. And I said, look, I'm sorry to tell you this, but 90% of your ad spend over the last 3 to 4 months were on generic top of funnel terms like wall art, office art, desk art. I said, I'd rather you spend 3 to 4 or $500 a month just on people that search for the artist's name and get profitable sales on that today, then you can sort of build and scale up. She's like, oh my gosh, it's like it makes so much sense. I would save so much. I'm like, that's what that's why you have to have the right strategy. That's why it's good to sort of look at both stages in the funnel and determine where you're at. If you're just getting started, maybe when to start at that bottom funnel after the and target the most profitable traffic, or if you're in a real growth mode, maybe you want to try to really scale things up by going after more top of funnel with sort of smart campaigns. So definitely it's important to have the right strategy with Google Shopping.
And one thing that you've been sharing a lot here, and this is like one of the core through lines that I explore on Economics, which is how agencies and
Mhm.
services such as yourself, because you're working with a lot of people, you're getting a lot of data.
Yeah,
Um, Both from the clients directly, but also from the work that you're
yeah,
doing on their behalf, which can then be disseminated
right,
and then shared to the, hey, this is something I learned from
yeah,
client A that I can share through clients B and C. So um,
right,
usually the question that I ask is, what have you learned in aggregate that you can share with these people? But some of this you mentioned already,
yeah,
just with the wall hangers. So, oh, sorry, the hanging wall art. What
yeah,
I would like to do is modify this question a little bit because what I'm wondering about is I guess, the decay rate of data, where maybe trends are changing in consumer behavior, maybe some certain products. I know I've seen some of your YouTube content, for instance, and I know that there's like a variance
mhm,
between, say, like what we do in the drop shipping realm. Things are really hot, and then all of a sudden they drop off, and so clearly there's some
yeah,
change in consumer interest. I know that strategically you tend to lean more towards you want your clients to be able to consistently sell, have consistent growth. So, what are things that you learn that actually end up having to be churned out over time?
mhm. Um, Man, what do you mean by turned out? Can you
Uh, ch-
explain a little bit further?
sure. So let's just base on let's just go product specific. Let's just say something is really popular, and then all of a sudden
Yeah,
it just fizzles out. And so all of
yeah.
this is something that at one point you could have told your clients about, but then all of a sudden now it stops. So what I'm wondering is how can you identify data that's no longer relevant?
Ooh, okay. That's it. Okay, that's a good question. So instead of the data that's not relevant, I look at back to the product example. So if you have a product that is not performing well or stops performing well, okay, there's what we think it's that data is relevant. We think it's important to look at that because I think the question is why is it not performing as well. And in some cases, it could be something very simple. In some cases, a little more complex. But when we have products or campaigns that no longer work, it really comes back to a simple formula of return on ad spend and how that math works for return on ad spend. And so what we're typically looking at is what's the click through rate, right? Did all of a sudden the click through rate stop? Or people stop clicking on my ads all of a sudden? And this used to happen quite a bit with AliExpress drop shipping. We'd have clients that would have a product from AliExpress and it would just crush it. It would perform really, really well on Go Shop and all of a sudden it stopped. And lo and behold, AliExpress started advertising on Google Shopping. That same product would be advertised on Google Shopping. So that would, click through rate would plummet. So there's something going on in the ad. But sometimes we can see a drop in conversion rate, and the drop in conversion rate, is the issue when something stops working. And so maybe there's a new competitor, lower price, or maybe there's something going on where they have a different value proposition. Like a golf client had a competitor that was offering like a free mini digital course with their golf product, and it's like, oh, gosh, we sort of, yeah. If I was buying that golf product, I'd buy it from your competitor. I'm sorry, So there
Mhm.
can be something like that that comes up, but also the click through rate. So I'm sorry, cost per click. So if cost per clicks really sort of spike up or scale up, that can be a little more complex, and you have to really sort of peel back some of the data on that. But I think for most of the audience here, just looking at the click through rate, right, of measurement of how many people see your ad versus how many people actually click, right? Because if everything's good in your image and your price and everything looks good, then they're going to want to click. But so if that sharply decreases, or if your conversion rate sharply decreases, look at your ad, look at your product, look at competition to see what can be changed there. Um, or if you need to develop a new product too. Sometimes, we've even see that on Amazon is like, look, we have a product that just sort of starts seeing a low click through rate was because industry has changed what they like. Maybe they like that different wattage or different color better than what you expected or what used to sell well. Just even making a slight change in your product, like it for us on Amazon, it was changing our color temperature of our lights. We found out that people actually like that little bit lighter white, and that's preferred. And it was surprised. It wasn't expected. And but once we came out with that change in in light color, our sales really just continue to take off and grow. People really like that light color. So just using that data, the click through rate, conversion rate to your benefit is really really important.
Have you encountered examples where the low click through rate was actually the result of the marketing, where maybe like the ad copy had gone on for too long, or maybe the message was just not resonating the same way it had maybe it's like change of seasons or maybe certain holidays or anything along those lines? Like before having to go so far as having to change a product or develop a new product, which I suppose sellers should be excited about because that's why we're here at the end of the day. But have you seen examples where just changing the marketing has been helpful?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we're actually running through that way right now with a client where his click through rate is very, very low, and he sells car parts and or car computers and things like that, and his price is a little bit higher, and so and his click through rate is very low. So what we're trying to do, and his price is higher for a particular reason. There's a certain value proposition that he offers, and so we're
Mm,
actually going in and changing some of the text on the Google Shopping headline to try to see if that can increase the click through rate. So we're also looking at changing his image to see if maybe that image can communicate something a little bit different. But yeah, I think looking at the image, the price, and the title is the biggest driver to the click through rate. And there's things like stars and like promos that you can add on Google Shopping. But looking at that, looking to see like maybe there's just a miss. Maybe your image just isn't that great, or maybe your image isn't showing the product to the fullest, or another
mhm,
example. Back to the metal detector, if your product was actually a bundled product, but your image was just of that one metal detector, well, and you show that in Google Shopping, well, yeah, your click through is gonna be low because you're actually selling a whole bundle of items, which is real popular in the metal detector industry. If you search for Garrett metal detector, you'll see a whole bunch of bundled items together. And so, you're making sure your ad is right, your image is right, your title's right. And because really you want to convince the customer to click on your ad. In those cases.
I didn't realize that, by the way, that there's like a metal detector beachcomber starter kit where it maybe it comes with
Yeah,
like a
absolutely.
little fisherman
Hey,
hat or something like that, like the whole metal detector lifestyle. I didn't
yeah,
try it, so I can't knock it.
it's popular. I tell you what, there are so many people that buy metal detectors. It's crazy. I just can't believe it. But yeah, but think about it. Like if you were selling a Garrett metal detector and you're at MAP pricing with five other people, and then you came out and said, look, I'm going to bundle these five other things that I can buy super cheap and just raise my price maybe a couple bucks or 10 bucks or 20 bucks. If you were new into the industry, who are you going to click on? Who are you going to buy? Right? You're going to click on that bundle deal because for 20 more bucks, I get all the stuff that I need anyways,
Mhm.
including the fancy hat. But that's all part of it. And trying to figure out, okay, well, what image, what do I need to get that better click through rate and better conversion rate? That's the key.
And that's something that I want to hone in on here because when I before we did the interview, I'm doing my usual prep, and one of the things I just wanted to do was because I
Mhm.
hadn't done this in a while, was just go onto Google Shopping and just see like what's the layout, and I mean that literally, like what's on the right hand side, what's in the middle, and it
Right.
strikes me as there are very few assets to use to really make a product stand out. There are the images, there's a title.
Right.
So my first question is, what am I missing? And overall, what are the tools that we can use to make our product stand out? And I just wanted to like add one more thing in there as like an asterisk, just to keep in mind is that
Mhm.
this is Google, this is search, so this is about intent. People are, I would say, on average, further down the funnel because they have already have an interest in
Right.
something. Maybe they've been marketed to in the past on Facebook. I haven't seen any metal detector ads lately, but I'm also not keeping my eyes out for it, and not until now. So yeah, so how what strengths or what edge can somebody get?
Yeah.
Competing with companies that are bigger, and you're literally side by side with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple key points in there. I think one is the what can you do from levers in terms of improving your Google Shopping ads to get the best performance. But then two, I think really in terms of competition and competing against the big companies, that's a big conversation in our industry, a big conversation here at Easton Digital. I mean, where we're our team here talks a lot about that. How can we beat this company? Because some of those big companies are tough because they can lose money on some advertising. And so, but I think the first part first, in terms of what levers you have to pull, it's really your image that shows up in Google Shopping, it's your title and your price. Those are the three main ones. Now there's other little things in your data feed like description or like product attributes or size or colors, things like that. I'd say, go ahead and you can sort of adjust those, but for most part, 80-20 rule, focus on those three: the price, title, and image. Okay, those are going to be big. So, really just looking and saying, okay, what terms am I showing up for? What terms am I not showing up for? What do I need to change in my image or my price or my title to get better? To convince that customer to click on my ad, to get a good click through rate. So that's really what you almost want to try to sell people to click on your ad. Now, the second part that's related to that though is also using those three levers to help Google's algorithm show your product, right? So, adjusting your title to include more keywords, or adjusting your title for a different position in the funnel to if you're selling that liquor gift basket example, like maybe you want to go after wedding favors, so you adjust your title to like wedding favor gift baskets, things like that. So you can adjust that to go after the different points in the funnel. And then
Yeah, sorry,
that's
sorry
really
about
good.
that. My alarm went off, but we'll cut it.
No worries, no worries. I thought it was maybe Google chiming in and saying, "Hey, what are you guys talking?" No, I'm joking. But no, I think the adjusting your product titles to go after different stages of the funnel. Those are their main levers. Okay. Now
Okay, sorry, we'll just have to give
the
us a second.
okay.
What's funny is that most of these are actually just telling me that it was a false alarm. Like it's almost always just like, oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, this is actually nothing. Like, sorry about what? I didn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
No,
is this is this is great so
um,
far. By the way, there's a lot of this
yeah.
stuff that's really
Yeah.
helping me like put things in
Cool.
place.
Cool. Cool. Well, good. Well, so the second part of your question though related to competing against big companies, and that, like I said, that's a very important topic. Really, what we look at is okay, how can we sort of outmarket? How can we outmaneuver those big companies? Some of those big companies, they're just again, they have thousands of products. They're casting a wide net. They're spending a ton. But really for a small to mid-sized shopper store, sometimes the opportunity is in those long tail keywords, those long tail terms. That with your Google Shopping keyword targeted campaign method, you can pinpoint those specific words, and so you can really put in the labor and time to find those long tail keywords and then say, okay, maybe that's a little bit less competitive. Maybe there's a little bit lower CPC, or maybe I can adjust my image or adjust my ad or adjust my title to better compete with that long tail term. Give an example, like if you're selling like car computer equipment or car equipment, and your title specifically says, Jeep, 2006 Jeep Cherokee, whatever, or part number, whatever, you're more likely to get a click through rate or get a click than someone just saying car computer equipment, right? Or some sort of generic term. So we look at the data feed and say, okay, well, what can we do to put get that find that long tail term, put that in our title to increase the click through rate, and what can we do to pinpoint that specific keyword? So it's more work. It certainly is more work for small to mid-sized businesses, but the point is to think smart, think, okay, well, what can I do at this granular level to get, to better serve the customer, better work with Google's algorithm to get that click and ultimately drive profitable sales. So that's what we try to focus on for the small to mid-sized market.
Yeah, I mean, everything has their place, right? And one thing that I will say, as a to the credit of larger companies, is that at the very least they provide a safety net for the demand altogether. So if
Mhm.
no one is selling the metal detectors, and a company that can afford the losses will sell the metal detectors. So at the very least, it gives at the end of the day, like it does give the customers at least some semblance of my demands will be met. But then we want to go past that and we say, well, we don't just want to meet your demands. We want to encourage a lifestyle. We want to provide additional value, additional content. Come to their website, join the community. Use this as a chance to elevate yourself as opposed to just buying the product alone, which
Right.
is the issue with the big companies. The other issue with big companies too, and you said this earlier, is that they can just afford to dump money, right? They can afford to fail.
Right.
And I hear that, and I remember some of my earlier research on some companies where like they're just spending the money so that they can gain control of the market. Once they gain control of the
Right.
market, then the price is all up to them. So that in of itself, it can be discouraging. But one thing I take away from this is that it really conditions the seller to be sharp and to be adaptive
Mhm.
and to be able to react to what's going on as quickly as possible, and will make a person a far better seller so that when they do scale up, they have the lessons that they
Right.
learned that will influence
Right.
the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Another message.
Yeah, at least I timed it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about this. This is actually this is
No,
a
no
record. This
worries.
is the first time that these guys have come on in the middle of it. It's a roll. It is a roll of the die, but there's just
Yeah.
nothing I can really do.
That's so funny. That's funny. Is it a legit warning or is it just a notification?
I mean, I
Don't know.
no, I tend if it's a legit warning, I tend to follow my nose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
That's funny.
yeah, my girlfriend, she's in the other room, so I think if I would
Oh,
I
something
wouldn't be
serious.
surprised if there was like an SMS system where they'll just automatically text people and be like, "Get out!" I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
it's the real deal this
Yeah.
time. All right, cool.
Funny.
I
Yeah.
love this tension where like I only have you for so long, but then I got these pauses over there. I just love it.
Yeah.
And my
No, it's
curtain's
good.
gonna
It
fall
makes
down,
it
and
for
then
good
yeah, it is. I'm tempted.
for
Sometimes I'm
good
like, do I
conversation.
want to edit this? It is kind of fun to just leave it in. Anyways,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, I know we talked about your keyword targeting strategy, but there was another one
Yeah.
from your service, Eastern Digital. It's called Opta Growth. Now, have you already characterized this, but you just didn't say Opta Growth in specific, or did you say it and I already forgot? Because if so, sorry. But can you just explain what
Yeah.
Opta Growth is and how you implement it?
Yeah. Yeah. Did your research there. Congrats to you. Awesome
Thank you.
job.
Yeah, I take
Yeah.
great pride in that.
Some of this. So some of this stuff is a little bit behind the scenes, sort of how we do things in like more advanced accounts. So what we have internal tools that we use. We call it OptiGrowth, and with our internal tools, what we have is it's sort of automate some of the bid adjustments and changes and tweaks, and it's basically a rules based AI that assists us in managing the counts to get the best performance. And it does things like we'll take screenshots of the Google ad position to track that. Like even that Garrett Metal example, like well, that's your home run term. Well, like I want to show up for that term. Like, let's take screenshots of it, daily and see, okay, well, where is my ad? Is my ad still showing up? Am I in position one, position two? Do I have multiple ads showing? And so it's an internal tool that we use to help us manage some of the advanced accounts. But certainly if you're just getting started, you don't need those advanced tools. I think, back to your point about demand side, Google Shopping is very much a sort of demand side marketing channel where your customers are going to Google and specifically looking for that product or using that specific keyword or search query or search term on Google to find it. And then so it's very simple. So unlike Facebook, there's no guesswork. You search for that yourself on Google and say, look, does it make sense for my ad to show up here? Like if I was my customer, would I want to click on my own ad and buy from me? If so, then great. Google Shopping can be a great source of traffic for you. So a lot of people, just to start out, spend a few $100 a month on Google Shopping. Just starting out, you can sort of do that, using the keyword targeted campaign strategy and smart campaign strategy to, really, really effectively. And so it's not until you start spending, 5,000, 10,000. We have some clients spending $75,000 a month, where now you really need those advanced tools to really sort of, get the most out of Google Shopping. So,
Yeah, and in fairness, as you say that your company leans to small and mid-sized businesses, and small
mhm,
is still there is some element of uh,
Yeah.
of operation to it. I mean, there are
Yeah.
terms that are smaller than small. Like there's like incubatory businesses.
Yeah.
There's conceptual businesses. There's loads of
Yeah.
businesses that don't exist yet that we all have in our heads. So there are
Yeah.
levels to that. But we come from a position of inspiration. We always want to
Yeah.
encourage listeners to swing for the fences because um,
Yeah.
there are only so many ways that we can become more free than we are now. And I really believe that e-commerce is, I mean, it's certainly one of the most fair, I think. If you get big, it's there
Mhm.
for you. If you're small, there are still options.
Right.
So with working with you, what point in a potential
Mhm.
client's journey would they be at before reaching out to you would be on the table?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So really for us, or really for any agency, I mean, just for any agency, you generally want to think of an agency as like as in two ways. Either one, to help you do something that you don't want to spend the time yourself you're doing, or you don't want to sort of help you, or you don't want to do it yourself, or don't want to learn it yourself, whatever. Okay, so an agency can come in and help you do that. Or like, look, you're getting going now. You need to really throw gasoline on the fire and really sort of accelerate growth. That's sort of the second style you'd want to use an agency. So for us, yes, we have some clients that will come to us and maybe they're spending, 1,000 or 500 or $700 a month, and they're like, "Look, I want someone to set up for me to just do it." Okay, so we have some packages for that, and then we have other clients that come to us and say, like, "Look, I want, I'm spending a few $1,000s a month, or 5,000 or $20,000 a month, and I really want to scale things up." Or in some cases, if you're spending like $20,000 on Facebook and you want to sort of expand into Google, that can be a pretty quick, in terms of scale approach. But in that case, is great. We have another sort of package available for that. But in all cases, I think, whether you look at an agency like us or look at any other agency, you want to sort of think of like what's going to save me time and effort, and or what's the sort of fuel in the fire. But in all cases, you really have to think about the ROI. Okay, I see some agencies that want to charge thousands of dollars a month and setup fees and all types of stuff. It's crazy, and you're not, to see an ROI on that is crazy. So that's why, just as a side note, I mean, we're performance based, so our monthly management fee
Mhm.
is, starts at 299 a month plus 2% of the sales that we drive. So I think, like I said, you want to think about, are you getting an ROI for that time, right? How much time would it require you to set it up and learn it, sort of figure it out, or make mistakes versus, how much, is that scale approach? Are you able to justify the additional agency fee to really scale it up? So I think that's what's most important. So yes, we have some clients that sort of will spend, like I said, between that 500,000, and then we have some clients that spend a lot more than that. But I think it's all what's going to give you the ROI. What's going to be the fastest path to the ROI? That's what's important to focus on.
Mhm. And I just wanted to say that I do have a great respect for the, I guess, the percent commission structure. I don't know the exact term for it, but
Hmm.
the fact that your success is really tied to the to the client success, and it just reminds me of like
Yeah,
when we care about what we do, this is something that's just inherent,
yeah,
right? When I before doing
yeah,
this, and I was doing a lot of freelancing, and I would edit content for
hmm,
people. I didn't have a commission structure. It was just flat rate, but I
yeah,
did everything I could think of to make the
yeah,
shows succeed because I wanted to keep the job. Like
yeah,
and I didn't want to feel
yeah.
bad about taking client money just so that they can flounder for a while and then feel kind of like
Right.
burned on all of it. So yeah, I just had a lot of respect for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, thanks. That has a lot to do with the small and mid-sized, Shopify owners, because that's the feedback. I mean, we used to charge like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 retainer fee each month, but there's a lot of small businesses that just like it doesn't like, they're not sure exactly where to start. They're not sure the best path, or what they can afford, what they can do, and it's like, well, they don't. It doesn't make sense for them to lay out 1,000 or $2,000 a month. It makes sense to start small. Like we always say, dip your toes in the water, get
Mhm.
some profitable sales today, and then start building, expanding on that. So, and so we like to see people take a nice, slow, steady approach and then build up. And that's why we had to come out with the 299 plus 2%, because it's the right thing to do. I mean, we don't make any money at 299. For us, it's about partnering with them, getting them on the right track, and then they can sort of, grow. And we've had some clients that just grow like crazy. And those are that's the big wins. That's the beneficial story for us and for them, because when we grow them like that, they stick around for a long time. And so that's, we just said like, look, we're going to take some risk on, we're going to do it ourselves.
Amazing. Hat trick. I feel like I owe you a coffee for this. Okay.
No, this is great.
Kurt,
Should keep it
uh,
in.
I'm tempted to do that. I kind of feel like doing it. I
It makes
honestly
it
do.
fun. It makes it real.
I appreciate you having a good humor about it too. And honestly,
Yeah,
that's the one thing I love. I really come to love about the e-commerce industry is that like
yeah,
nearly everybody, and not putting any fingers, but nearly everybody is really chill because so many
yeah.
things go wrong that there's
Right.
a lot like inherent empathy to it. So for that
Yeah.
to arigato. So, but I know we gotta get you on out of here in a very short amount of time. So I've got one more question that I would like to know. This is just like a
Yeah.
personal question just about you, which is I know
Yeah.
that you have a background in engineering. I don't know
Yes.
specifically like like bridge building or like
Pretty close.
pretty
Pretty
close.
close.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a two-parter. So what got you into e-commerce from that point, and then
Yeah.
were there any core skills that you picked up in engineering that came with you into your e-commerce career?
Oh man, I could talk about this all day long. So just, but no,
Wrong time to ask
so
it.
I am actually, I'm a civil engineer. So my background is civil engineering. So I actually worked on like roadways and land development type projects, not bridges. Although I started my career in working on bridges, but I mostly worked on like land development projects. But what got me into e-commerce was I was in the MBA program at Ohio State, and just studying all things business, and some big companies came in and said like, look, we've got a big problem in the market in terms of marketing. We've got fluff marketers or marketers that know marketing concepts and principles. They don't know the technical side. And then we've got developers and sort of technical people that know the technical side, but we don't have people that know the Google Analytics or know pivot tables and can run Excel reports from Google Analytics from Google Ads data and find those opportunities in the data. That's the big opportunity over the next 10 years. And uh, so they were sort of convincing a whole bunch of us marketing students to do that. And immediately I fell in love. I'm like, I love data, I love numbers, love Excel, pivot tables, all that stuff. And so where can I use that? And that's sort of what led me to e-commerce. And so I took a job at a local agency that sort of specialized in large, like Fortune 500 type retailers. And very quickly, it was like, okay, the big gap in the market is the small to mid-size. They don't have any reliable that they can trust, work with, and provide good quality strategies at a reasonable price. And so that's the market. I was like, okay, pretty quickly I said I'm going to take on some of my own clients, and started doing my own clients. And this was back in 2013. And then just literally word of mouth I kept getting more and more and more
Mhm.
clients. And it's just amazing. I think this e-commerce community is great. Just it's a small, tight knit community. And I mean, I'm not a marketing person. I mean, we just do good work, and people just keep referring clients to us. And so that's how we've grown. We now a team of 9. And so and 90% of what we do is Google Shopping and Bing Shopping. And that's for small to mid-sized shopper stores. And that's what we
Awesome.
do all day long. So that's our specialization. So that's how I got into it. So
Yeah,
sort of by accident, but
great.
it's
Man,
I like it. It's definitely
well,
different than
I
engineering.
always say
So
it's good to have you here, and I mean it.
yeah,
You're doing a lot of good for a lot of people who can definitely use some people that they can really
mm,
trust. So for that,
yeah,
congratulations on everything you've done so
yeah,
far, and we're gonna get you on out of here. So the last
yeah,
thing to do and say is if
yeah.
you have any last words of wisdom, you're welcome to share it, and then let
Oh,
people
yeah.
know how they can find you.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think the words of wisdom. I think just getting started. I think like do that dip of the toe of the water. Just get started. Like it's so important for people just to get started and get some data, get some because as you start going, you'll start figuring and learning things out more and more. And so I really recommend setting up a Google Shopping campaign or any type of marketing. Just getting started and doing something. You can be amazed at how things can just start snowballing. And we see it all the times with Google Shopping. We see a couple months in or 3 months in, some product iterations or website changes or Facebook retargeting campaigns get launched or SMS marketing get launched, and then all of a sudden things just start taking off. I mean, it's amazing how in e-commerce things can just really start snowballing and working. And so I really recommend that. And then in terms of finding me, the easiest way to find me, I mean, of course, if anybody has any questions, they can email me just at Kurt, KURT, at eastondigital.com. or you can visit our website, eastondigital.com, EASTON, it's EASTON digital.com. And I'd be happy to connect there. Or you can check me out on YouTube. I've got lots of free content, lots of strategies and opinions and ideas that I have. I just upload to YouTube
Mhm.
or our Facebook page. So you can check us out there as well. So, but
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
once again, it's been great to have you. This has been a lot of fun. Definitely putting a lot of pieces
yeah,
together in my head. And so, listeners, I certainly hope the same for you. And of all the other
yeah.
takeaways, I learned that I actually have a pause button on Zencaster, so I probably could have utilized that today. But we're just going to move on. So,
Hey, it's fun.
take care,
It's good.
listeners.
It's
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Thank
yeah,
you very much. Thanks for having me.
we
Thanks. Love
totally
being part of this community. Thank you. Appreciate it.
same here. All right, listeners, take care. We'll check in soon.
We are on TV every night, late night infomercials. So that's how we get our initial.
Hey, this is Joseph from ECOMMERCE. Just wanted to thank you for being here and for giving this content your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I can say with certainty, I have learned something with every episode that I have done, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's a couple things you can do to help us out. If you want to check out the audio content, we are available on all major podcast platform distributors. And while you're there, give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And while you're here on YouTube, there's a lot of things you can do to help out as well. It's not going to take very long. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this episode, and hit the notification bell so when we have new content for you, it's going to be at your doorstep ASAP. Lastly, this podcast is created by Debutify, the best Shopify template available. It is 100% free for you to start, and it can change your life. It can make you so much more free than you are right now. So if this episode wasn't enough to convince you, I think a few more might do the trick. So have at it.